I'm going to get into some climate change news, and we're going to start with Nicaragua braces for catastrophic damage as Hurricane Eta nears landfall. Category 4 storm threatened much of Central America with winds of up to 150 miles per hour and heavy rainfall. Experts warn of rainfall totals of up to 35 inches and possibly higher in some areas. Let's look at this very quickly. Powerful Category 4 hurricane continued to gain strength as it neared the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua, where it was expected to make landfall early Tuesday. That's today. National Hurricane Center in Miami said. As of 5 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, the storm was about 25 miles east of Puerto Cabezas, a Nicaraguan port town. On Monday evening, it was moving west-southwest at about 7 miles per hour. Let's get some super current news on this. Hopefully without playing any videos. So it's now currently battering Nicaragua ahead. Ahead of an expected catastrophic landfall. So it's pummeling northeastern Nicaragua as its eye wall meandered just offshore Tuesday afternoon, ahead of what could be days of flooding in parts of Central America, the U.S. National Hurricane Center said. Catastrophic wind damage is expected when landfall happens on Nicaragua's Caribbean coast later Tuesday afternoon, the NHC said. Hurricane warning was in effect Tuesday for roughly 150-mile stretch of Nicaraguan coastline from the Honduras-Nicaragua border south to Sandy Bay, Sirpe, on east-central Nicaragua's Caribbean coast. A dangerous storm surge of up to 21 feet above normal tide could crash onshore in parts of Nicaragua. That is just an amazing amount of storm surge, and yes, and quite deadly. Let's move on to, we're going to go back to Goni. So we covered this already in the earlier headline. Super Typhoon Goni slams into Philippines as strongest landfalling tropical cyclone on record. Known as Raleigh in the Philippines, the storm likely caused catastrophic damage in the region of Catanduanes Island, where the typhoon made its initial landfall with 195 mile per hour winds. So this is on November 1st. So Goni was the strongest landfalling tropical cyclone in world recorded history, using 1 minute average wind speeds from National Hurricane Center for the Atlantic, Northeast Pacific, and 1 minute average winds from JTWC for the rest of the planet's ocean basins. The previous record was jointly held by Super Typhoon Meranti, which made landfall on September 16, 2016, on Itbayat Island, Philippines, and Super Typhoon Haiyan, which made landfall on November 8, 2013, on Leyte Island, Philippines. Both had maximum winds of 195 miles per hour at their peak intensity, but were weaker at landfall with 190 mile per hour winds. So the increasing strength of storms and the frequency of storms is now not a bug but a feature of climate change. Now, not a bug but a feature of our current climate. No longer the exception, but most likely the rule. So yeah, we have a record set this year, topping records set in 2016 and 2013. And let's move. We're going to go back to this other headline. Climate crisis, global temperature rise of 2C would release billions of tons of soil carbon. That doesn't sound very good, does it? Soils could release equivalent of 4 times China's emissions over the past century. Soil is a huge but little recognized carbon storage facility. The world's soils contain 2 to 3 times more carbon than the atmosphere. But as average global temperatures creep up, the rate of decomposition of organic matter also goes up, meaning the amount of carbon released from soils also rises. A new study estimates that an average global temperature increase of 2C, where are we in relation to 2C? Some might say we're at 2C or over. On the high end, the official temperature from many sources seems to be around 1C or maybe a little bit over or a little bit under. Some people put us at 1.5 or above 1.5. There are lots of theories or ideas about where we're actually at. But anyways, this says the study estimates that the average global temperature increase of 2C, an outcome the Paris Climate Agreement aims to prevent. And if we're already there or very, very close, how are we going to prevent that? Would lead to around 230 billion tons of carbon being released from the world's soil. This is the equivalent of more than 4 times the total emissions from China, or emissions, over the past 100 years, and more than double the emissions of the USA over the same time frame. Right. The U.S. With over a century of emissions, far higher emissions. So double the emissions of the U.S. When carbon spends less time in the soil, this is known as an increasing rate of soil carbon turnover. The new international research study led by the University of Exeter reveals the sensitivity of soil carbon turnover of global warming and subsequently halves uncertainty about this in future climate change projections. So they're more certain by half. Our study rules out the most extreme projections, but nonetheless suggests substantial soil carbon losses due to climate change at only 2C warming. So along with some other studies recently that say, well, we're going to rule out the extreme projections, but we're going to lock in the pretty bad projections, right? The middle of the road, like fairly damaging projections. This doesn't even include losses of deeper permafrost carbon, so does not include. Leaves out. That's a whole lot of carbon, right? Deeper permafrost carbon. This effect is an example of a positive feedback. There you go. Let's move on to this article that we covered earlier in headlines. In the sun they'd cook. Is the U.S. Southwest getting too hot for farm animals? We just read something yesterday about the Southwest getting too hot for people animals. So all the animals, and I would suggest, I'm going to assume they mean the other animals as well. As temperatures rise, farmers are being forced to adapt, experimenting with new breeds and cooling methods. Climate countdown. Oh, I'm sorry. They like to just slip in other little headlines there, but that's fine. But a worthy read, though. Climate countdown. The U.S. is set to exit the Paris climate when? Tomorrow. It urges me to read more about what's at stake, and maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. Southwest of Phoenix, Arizona is the hottest desert in North America. Beth and Tim Wilson use sprinklers to cool their 300 pigs. Nearby, the Adams Natural Meats Bison Ranch employs shaders and misters. North of the city, chicken farmer Dave Jordan says he cannot put his 10,000 birds out to pasture. If they were out in the sun, they would just get cooked. Animal agriculture accounts for 1/3 of the U.S. Southwest agricultural revenue. Like the rest of the world, however, the region is changing. Between 1901 and 2016, its average temperature increased by 0.9 C, almost 1 C, 1.6 Fahrenheit, and by 1.6 C in some of its hottest places. So there you go. If you want to take an aggregate of those readings, somewhere between 0.9 C and 1.6 C. Arizona recently struggled through a summer that was the hottest ever recorded in some parts of the state. Animal farmers are now compelled to find ways to adapt to climatic shift, exploring new ways of keeping chickens and cows cool or importing more heat-resistant breeds. Lingering in the air is the question of whether the climate crisis is making animal agriculture in this part of the world impractical. The American Southwest, often defined as Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada, and California, has deep roots in animal agriculture. Cities such as Phoenix arose thanks in part to hardy livestock operations. Many of the region's pigs and poultry are raised indoors, where farmers combine methods such as fans, showers, misters, and cooling systems, but they cost energy and money, and penning animals indoors can erode their well-being. So many farmers also take pains to pasture animals. Jordan raises Cornish crosses, a breed that grows so fast that it outpaces its ability to feather, meaning it develops bald spots. One second, guys. Okie dokie. Sounds very nice for these chickens, and by not very nice, I mean not very nice. Being so clunky, they are vulnerable to the elements, so Jordan uses evaporative and fan cooling and shelters birds in shady pens. If we don't do that with meat chickens, then we start going in by the end of the day and picking up dead bodies. At higher elevations of 6,000 feet in Lemoyle, Nevada, Sue Kennedy keeps Freedom Rangers, a less prolific but hardier chicken than the Cornish cross. If she raised Cornish crosses with their combination of heat, stress, and altitude, she says she would have 50% or more mortality. Holy moly, 50% or more mortality. Even her Freedom Rangers require cooling. So Kennedy sets sprinklers upwind and constructs poultry houses amid pastures where misty breezes blow through. Despite her efforts, her chickens have been growing slower in hotter, drier recent years. She thinks this might be due to heat stress. When an animal becomes hot, just like when you become hot, you don't want to eat very much, says Tammy Brown Brandel, an agricultural engineer at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. In response to increased internal temperatures, animals eat less, drink more, have lower fertility rates, and experience higher mortality rates. When heat-stressed, poultry drinks 2 to 4 times the water they normally do. Pigs, meanwhile, cannot sweat and begin to feel heat stress at about 21 C, which is not very hot at all. Phoenix averaged 37.2 C in August 2020, meaning the pigs eat less and their feed spoils more quickly. To escape the heat, pigs and chickens are usually kept inside in the Southwest. This does not eliminate the danger. You do lose some in the barn. Brown Brandel says the prospects for cattle are unclear. Dairy cows, cattle, and calves account for the bulk of the region's animal agriculture revenue. Cattle can be raised inside, but that would defy ranch land tradition. In the Southwest, or Southwest as they spelled that, cattle roam under open skies even in summer. So, much has to be done in order to mitigate the heat stress of all these animals that are being used to feed the humans, who also have to mitigate the heat stress that the humans are experiencing. So how much longer can all of this go on? The mitigation of the heat stress to humans and the heat stress to animals, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But that is, just a little glimpse at climate change today on November 3rd in 2020. Hey, there are many ways that you can support this channel: PayPal, Venmo, Square, Bitcoin, Ethereum. All the links are in the description box below. You can also support me on Patreon for as little as $1. I post all the live streams there, so you can watch the full live streams